and welcome to another video, and today I'm going to be doing the updated version for Noted's Ultralight 2 Wireless. You recently watched I did one with a AAA battery. Today we're going to be using the LR44 battery. A little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, different base, which I got off Etsy from a Motimer. Put a link in the description if you want to buy it yourself and do your own mod. You're going to need a Ultralight 2, a G305, some of these tools that I'm using, and some time to get this put together. For all these bits, I'll put all the links in the description for all the parts that you need. Create your own mouse. And in this, I'm going to show you exactly how to build it yourself. If you're not familiar with this channel, it gives you all the data and statistics, give you the competitive edge over your rivals. All that data is also on birdiebob.com. We'll be updating that very soon, along with mods for mice. Get the extra little bit of performance out and tailor it to your style as well. Loads of videos on that on the channel. You notice that I'm using some lighter fluid. There's different methods of taking the skates off. Done a video on this, go check it out. Then we have to strip down the Ultralight 2. We're going to need the top shell from the Ultralight 2. And we need the inners from the G305. You can reuse the skates. I personally am going to put some hyperglides on this. This is what the shell looks like inside before we make any changes. You are going to have to make some cuts to the shell. This won't work on your standard base once you've done that. This is a permanent mod. It's going to take some hacking around to get it to fit nice and flush. Now this base looks like it fits better than the last one that I did. Certainly one of the reasons why I'm doing this as well. I've chopped these rear screw mounts. We have to do several of them. Just keep checking the base against the Ultralight 2 body here. There is a guide that's provided as part of the Etsy sale. So if you need to follow that, you can. I've got the LR44 battery holder. This fits in the bottom of the base nicely. It's a tight fit. You aren't going to have to glue this. There's two pins, there's a positive and a negative as well that will solder up in a bit. Then you can swap the battery without having to open the mouse, drop it out the base, and it's also at the rear, help with balance as well. Whereas the last AAA battery one was a little bit on the side. A lot of people were saying it needs to be more in the center to sort the balance out. So this hopefully is a slightly better balance. Ultralight 2. We'll wait up at the end, measure it as well. You can see I'm just making little nicks in the shell, not taking too much. It's easier to take more than just put it back. I'm just working it until we get it to fit. Can't recommend trying to fit as many times as you possibly can. There's never too many. Now this is a compression fitting. On the guide itself it says use tracing paper. I've just pushed it in here because it's that tight anyway. It doesn't need to be. I just keep chopping at the front. You can use tracing paper to make it a little bit more sturdy because it holds down the front of the shell, but it's that tight. I've had no issues. I guess it'll depend on your 3D print. I 3D printed this one off myself, as I do with all my mods. See at the front, I'm being very gentle and just taking out very small amounts of plastic because I don't want to mess this up. If you do, you need a brand new Ultralight 2 shell, and these are not cheap, these mice, and they're certainly getting harder to get hold of. See now it's starting to fit nicely in the front. Again, a little bit more plastic I've just got to take out. Keep working the front. It's certainly one of the parts I would take my most time on. It's reversible. You could always print another 3D printed base. You can't print a new top shell. Bit's looking pretty nice. even on the front corner, which is one of the weaker points on the last mod. Wasn't as tight as that. This one's definitely tighter on the front. See how it fits later on. This one also uses the stock Ultralight 2 scroll wheel, not the G305, which is also nice. We'd have to change the encoder on this one though, which is a little bit trickier. I certainly wouldn't recommend changing any encoders. They are a tricky task. This one's a little bit high. Now I've got to trim out a little bit on the right hand side of the shell. This just helps the PCB slot in a bit better. I'm really sure that what this bit's here for, maybe to strengthen the Ultralight 2. No real reason for it, other than something like that, I would have thought. Now I want to take the rear panel off. Something's still not quite right. I just want to check. This thing is stiff on this one. Using a plunger here just to push off the rear shell is useful. You can see that the battery JST connection is still pressing against the rear shell screw mount. Then I realised that the side button mount is also catching on the PCB and I have to trim that. Be careful not to trim it too tight to the mounting point or the slot for the side buttons because it will make them weaker. Furthermore, to take off on the top part of the shell. This is the side mounting bracket for the side buttons. I like this, it screws in. Pretty cool, there's 3 screws for it.
Otherwise known as auto-pack.
So check the fit again, check the scroll wheel. You can see now these side buttons are now catching on the top of the shell. This can use the default side button PCB. We're not changing the PCB, but we will be changing the cable. You can see the amount of time it's taken me to modify this shell. Now it's fitting. Now I've got to trim out the PCB because there's not enough. So I found that if I trimmed out the bottom of the PCB, it would help it lower down. And then these side buttons now work. Little by little, you get to the right position. So he's using again Hoano white dots. I've done a video on these and all the Hoano and the Kale and compared them all, the switches together. If you're interested, go check those out. They'll give you all the force, the latency, all that information. You can find the right switch for you. Still doing my on run one. It's not been left. It's on its way. Don't worry. So I'll take the G305 side button cable. I take it off that PCB and I put it onto the Ultralight 2 PCB. Then we strip the wires for the default battery JS2 connection. We connect that to the LR44 battery on the rear. I do like this one with the battery mod. Nicely working. Lights up. Yeah, boy. So I've already changed the switches on these to Hokkaido Blue, but what we have to do is remove the PCB of the G305. We're just going to use the cables and then solder it through the bottom of the PCB. I'm going to change the encoder. This is a lot of work. I end up using some pliers here to cut them, which I've used a lot to do these. They're not the easiest things to remove, these encoders. I've been trying to work on some better methods, a lot of flux, and then we just keep working it till we get rid of the encoder, and then we have to pull out some of the additional metal pins. Have to keep working these. I recommend not doing this yourself. This is risky and not easy at all. And use some braid to clean up the holes. This stuff's invaluable to me. And then we can fit the new encoder. Little foreman's appeared now to check my work. Happy with it, so we can continue. Then I'm using a bit of glue on the switches now. Be very careful here. I ended up peeling some of this back off, but because the switches are not held down until they're in the shell will push them down. I like using a little bit of glue just to secure them. You could use double-sided tape, which might be a better option here, because it is quite tight on the side. We're using all the stock G305 screws. There are 2 additional screws we're going to use for the front. Used slightly larger screws. I had to cut down 20mm to 10mm. I don't know why we're using these larger screws, but that's what the base is made for, so that's what we had to do. Now I'm also using M3 insulation tape to pad out the plungers for the buttons to remove the pre-travel. It's a good trick. If you want to do a video on removing pre-travel, let me know and I'll do one. Noted want the tightest switch. That's what I've done, and took away any pre-travel out of it. And that's what it looks like without any feet. We can put some hyperglides on it. You won't need to open this one to change the battery, which is good. I can put the Zowie hyperglides on because it covers the LR44 battery mount, so I've had to use the final mouse hyperglides. You can still change the battery without causing any problems and taking the skates. And that's what it looks like complete. This is the size. The default's 36mm as well, and the weight is 55 grams, which is 3 grams heavier than the stock 52 grams, which is pretty impressive given now it's wireless. So overall, this is a good mod. I was certainly impressed with it. This is my favourite one for the Ultralight 2, one that I would recommend out of the 2 that I've tried. It's a lot nicer fit, and I like the way you can change the battery out the base as well. If you want to see a G Pro wireless Superlight that I did for latency, go check that out. There's a new scroll wheel in it as well as an encoder, a load of work. It's ridiculous the amount of work that went into that. It's a cracking mouse. Go check it out. Until the next video, I'll see you soon. Catch you later. Bye bye.